All right. So I guess now you understand what the plan was.
Absolutely. At Colts Law, we talk Indianapolis Colts football.
We're going to stick to what we know, fundamentals and technique, 1% better every day.
What's going on, Colts Nation? I'm Lawrence Owen. With me, as usual, is my guy, Loyalist. And today we have a special guest, my boy, Derek. What's up, Derek? How you doing, man?
Hey, man, doing great. Thanks for having me on once again. I always enjoy talking with you guys.
Absolutely. Now, today, somebody's got the stream going in the background. Is it me?
Oh, is that me? Might have been me. I thought I unmuted it, but
I heard myself. I heard myself in the background. I don't hear myself in the background no more. All right, guys. So thank you. Well, wait. Maybe I do hear myself a little bit. I don't know.
I'm getting double. I'm going to step out.
Okay. All right. So that was it. That was it. It was Chuck this whole time. Chuck, come on, man.
Oh, man, come on. I thought that was me. He left me thinking it was me the whole time.
He's all good. He's all good. Just whenever he's able to step back in, that'd be great.
Okay, cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a stream. It's about you guys. All right. It's about you trying to come in, give us your questions right there in the comment section. Let us know what's on your mind, and we will give you our best answers from how we've been watching the games. Now, as you can see, there's a little ticker at the bottom here. It says donations. This is a donation stream. If you guys could donate, I would appreciate it. It helped me keep my power, electric, and house payment and everything going. To be honest with you, my views have not been able to pay the bills this month. Hopefully next month everything will get back to normal, but right now I don't want to break in my content creation, so please let me know. I am hearing myself in the background still. That's weird. Yep. Okay, it's okay. So let me see here what I got going on. All right, so here's the big deal. If you can drop the link, if you can use the link in the top of the description, that'd be great. If you can't, please smash that like button and hit subscribe, because that would help out a ton. Okay. Real quick out. What's up, John Davis? I understand you're broke. I'm broke too. We're all broke, but if you can afford, if someone out there can afford to help, that'd be great as well. And Alex, what's up, Alex? Appreciate you being in here as well. Guys, I just want you to know we're about 3 minutes in, so I'm going to go ahead and shout out HOMAGE. They came in right before I started this live stream, so I had to change things up a little bit. All right. And they got a hold of Derek too, but Derek's going to go on this a little bit later. But guys, if you need some Colts apparel, HOMAGE got some pretty nice stuff. So let's go check out what they actually have on their site. That's pretty cool. Different stuff here. They're going to send me a JT shirt, so I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Something that I could wear. But yeah, there's other stuff on here as well. Just go check out their site. The link is in the description of the video. Thank you so much, HOMAGE, for the support. Now, let's get into talking about the Indianapolis Colts and the NFL, guys. I think that's something that we should really get into, since that's what the stream's about. I do know that yesterday was college, right? A
couple games of college. Yep, for sons. Yep.
Oh my goodness, social media blew up over that, right? I mean, you got everybody was watching like the Pitt game, Purdue, and all that.
Purdue,
yeah, it wasn't no Northwestern game like earlier in the week. that one was a sleeper.
Yeah, a lot of people like, why aren't you running the football, Derek?
Listen, all right, they should have ran the dang ball. All right, they should have taken a motto from the Colts. They should have, because they're not too far away from Indianapolis. So why weren't they taking the hometown motto? I have no idea.
I don't know either. But speaking of running the damn ball, okay. The Indianapolis Colts ain't showed a whole lot this offseason when it comes to running the football. Jonathan Taylor didn't take a single snap. Hines didn't take very many, only week 1, right, when it comes to running the football. And we've had differences in offensive line throughout all 3 games because, changing things up, injuries, COVID, all sorts of stuff going on. My question to both of you is our running game going to come out the gate looking as good as it was when, mid-season last year, or are we going to have an issue? We're going to go Derek with this first.
I battled that argument. I've been talking about that with myself since like the Detroit game. I think that we as a collective unit understand that, the starters didn't play the majority of all of this. So it makes sense. Your backup linemen were struggling against this. So of course, your starting offensive linemen most of the time are a completely different story. And like you said, Jonathan Taylor's not out there. So instantly when you're running the football, it is clearly not in the same interest. And of course, when teams take into account that, Jonathan Taylor is not out there, you would think that would mean that more teams would be less interested in you running the football. But at the end of the day, it just seemed like it felt like they just didn't care as much about stopping things. And these defenses came up with these exotic blitzes just to throw us off our game. I don't know. I'm not looking too much into it because I know that once week 1 comes around, it's going to be a different story. And I will say this, the Colts are playing last year, the 2 worst defensive teams at stopping the run the first 2 games of the season. So I will say this, if they can't run the football in those 2 games, then yes, we have a problem here because obviously we're going to see the worst of the worst at the start. And we've seen Jonathan Taylor break off some decent runs in training camp, right? So it makes you think that, maybe in the grand scheme of things, we know it. Not only is the offensive scheme dumbed down from a passing perspective, it's also dumbed down from a run blocking perspective as well. It's a lot of halfback dives and those stupid trap plays that just don't work sometimes if the left tackle doesn't come off his edge right, just that kind of stuff, right? So I will say I'm not ready to press the panic button yet, but yes, if we have something that happens like if we can't run the ball against Houston and Jacksonville, then yes, it's time to maybe start hitting the panic button.
Loyalist.
Yeah, for me, I think that last point as far as, running against the defense of the Houston Texans. I don't think it's going to be as smooth as, like you said, mid-season last year. We've got some new pieces in that O-line and stuff. And whatever you wanted to say about Fisher, his run blocking was fairly solid last year. He fell off more in the pass blocking. And the thing is I'm not worried about JT. I'm just worried about that O-line and how are those pieces going to start meshing in week 1, week 2. But like you said, with it being against the Texans, I think we're going to be able to run the ball well enough, to where the passing game is going to be able to get a little bit of time going on. And I do not worry about week 1 as much as I do week 2, because I think that Jacksonville D has some pieces there that are going to make running the ball a little bit trickier than what the Texans are offering.
So I think that the Indianapolis Colts run game starting week 1 will come off the line hot. Hot. Okay. So again, we don't scheme in the preseason. So we didn't see all the stuff that we're going to be seeing week 1. Plus, here's the deal, okay? When you're talking scheming, Frank Reich is known for showing the exact same offensive line setup and yet completely different blocking scheme. You look at the same, it could end up being man-to-man blocking. You could end up running a trap play off the same look. You could a wham off the same look, a pull off the same look, and go in completely different directions. Okay. He's hiding what he's going to be utilizing. And I will almost guarantee Jonathan Taylor averaged over 150 yards a game last year against the Texans. Okay. Week 1. And let's look at it this way. With Matt Ryan and the passing offense kind of in question right now, you're going to lean a little bit heavier on that run game. Will it all be Jonathan Taylor? I don't think so. I think there'll be a lot of Naheem Hines mixed in there as well, which will, two running back setups. I think Matt Ryan would absolutely love having that kind of situation going on. I think the run game week 1 will be something that the Indianapolis Colts will lean on, and I don't think the Texans will be able to stop it at all.
Yeah, I mean, because let's be honest, okay? The Colts offensive line is better than what the Texans offensive line is. Pierce, I like what he's put on, tape, but he's eaten up that Texans defense. Well, I'll argue that JT is going to be able to do much more than what Pierce was able to do, for the Texans just in their training camp and stuff. So, like you said, I don't know that it'll be that smooth, where, you're going to see a lot of JT breaking off the 50, 60-yard runs, but I do think it's going to be that more methodical. Let me beat you and bruise you for a few quarters and then see if we can gash one on them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Derek, I see that you're over here on social media sharing this out. I appreciate that a lot. And I retweeted it too. So, hey, because I keep an eye as well. What is the number one worry that you have walking into the season, Derek?
I think what bothers me the most right now is what happens when guys like DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart leave the field. I think that's what's scaring me the most at the moment. We have seen not only the Colts' inability to run the football in the preseason, we also saw their inability to stop the run preseason. Now, it was different when the starting defense was out there. Starting defense didn't look terrible. They weren't bad. They weren't great, but they weren't terrible. But at the end of the day, the Colts defense is going to be okay at stopping the run. But when they come off, like, you look at the Lions game, they ran for 170 yards on us. I mean, in Buffalo, they were no easy scraps either. They had a couple decent runs in that. And then in Tampa Bay, the only reason they ever made it down the field was because they were able to run the football on us. So, like, that's what I'm concerned about. And it obviously it's on all fronts of the defensive line, but the stopping the run for the most part is built inside, and it's on the defensive tackles to not lose ground on those double teams. But clearly the backups for the defense for the Colts right now are not doing what is necessary to be able to stop the run game. And that also does have something to do a little bit with the linebackers as well. I get that it does play a little part into it, but you got some young guys in Eric Johnson II, who's a rookie. You still aren't sure about and he's more of a pass rush specialist than he is a run stopper. And Byron Cowart, who I didn't think should have made the roster in the first place, but here he is. So, like, what's going to happen? When you get – now, I know the Colts said that guys like Ballard, I think, mentioned it in his press conference, that guys like Dio Odangbo and Tyquan Lewis can sometimes find their way inside because of their capabilities. Obviously, Dio's just as big as anybody else out there. Tyquan Lewis has a lot of great flexibility. He's very smart. So, that might have to be the measure that the Colts go to. That's why they kept 6 ends, because those guys are guys that they may have to do a lot of that for, because, when DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart come off that field, I don't know what the Colts have behind them right now to actually replace them and get any kind of production out of them. Because if that's the way it's going to look throughout the season, there's going to be teams that are going to say 3rd and 5. I don't care. Let's run the football because they can run right through our D line right now.
Yeah, I did mention in our 53-man reaction that, just because we only got 4 guys on the D tackle, remember, Dio and Tyquan both play defensive tackle as well. So I think they kept those DNs in that type of situation because of the Gus Bradley scheme and Nate Ollie of being able, they want to attack rather than hold. And I think that's one of the reasons why they went with the lighter, faster defensive line so that they can attack. And I mean, we've seen against Tampa Bay what happens when you do get a defensive tackle behind the line of scrimmage. It creates chaos. Grover Stewart was a devastating beast in that game
Yes.
because he was able to get penetration. And if we could just get some of those other guys to do the exact same thing, maybe not every stinking down on the whole drive the way Grover was. I thought Grover was going to end up making a safety in the locker room.
Bad. I felt bad for those linemen because, like, obviously that's going to be their starters. And because, you know, they've lost 3 offensive linemen this offseason already, they're getting the treatment of what the Eagles had 2 years ago with Carson Wentz, lost half their offensive line. That's what Brady's going to have to deal with. And Grover Stewart, obviously one of the best one techs in the NFL when it comes to stopping the run. And he showed you why right there. Like, if you don't got somebody that can stuff him, he's going to absolutely just destroy you.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget, this is a donation stream. So if you're watching and you want to get a question in and you can help support the channel financially, please use the link at the top of the description, or you can see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. Loyalist, is that your top worry about it, or what is it that worries you the most about this Colts team walking into the season?
No, that isn't my top worry because of what Derek finished off with, because Tyquan and Dangbo can fill in the middle. My biggest concern is pass protection. Okay. And the thing is we may not see this week 1, week 2, because, you know, they're going to, speed this thing up. But thing is if we can't protect Matt Ryan in that, in the deeper, longer developing routes and stuff, that's a concern for me. Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith. Don't worry about those guys for the most part, as long as they're healthy and in game shape. But they're getting that guard and that left tackle, especially that left tackle. How are we going to hold up, especially if it's a speed rush? I like what Pryor has been progressing at, but the thing is he still is going to get eaten up by that speed rush. And the thing is how much do we have to scheme to protect that left tackle spot? And how much does that take away from the teeth of our receiving game? Because, you have to bring a tight end in. All of a sudden, that's one less person that you hopefully have out there on that route. So for me can we not the short, quick passes? Matt Ryan's going to be able to do that all day. But can we protect him whenever we need that extra beat and a half, protect them to give that route to develop?
So my worry is kind of similar to yours, not right dead on, because, let's face it, no offensive line is going to be perfect a year in, year out, but here's the thing. Matt Ryan loves his tight ends. It's a fact, he absolutely loves using his tight ends. And I'm worried that Matt Ryan will be very similar, because Carson Wentz loved his tight ends too. Right. But he didn't utilize them nearly as much. He tried, but a lot of overthrows and stuff. Will Matt Ryan make adjustments at the line if he sees pressure and realizes I need help off the edge? Will he bring his tight end, take him off his route to help block? Because we've seen multiple times last year and the year before with Phillip Rivers that, the quarterback sometimes won't do that. They have the power to do that, but they don't do that because they would rather have that extra target out there rather than that extra half a second or more, by utilizing good pass blocking tight ends like Mo Alley Cox to help protect his blind side in obvious situations that needs to be done. That's something that worries me. I hope Matt is a little different than the last couple quarterbacks in that area, in that aspect of the game. And, like you said, that's the biggest problem is, protecting against those speed edge rushers on the outside. And if he can figure out a way of getting himself just that extra second, because we got, from what I've seen at training camp and preseason while watching the all 22, our receivers can get separation. Just give them time. Receivers can't get open in a half a second. I don't care who they are, right? Jerry Rice needed a moment to get open, okay? Because you got to be able to run your route. And that first break is where you get your separation. And if your first break ain't until 10 yards down the field, that ain't happening right away. You know, it ain't instantaneously 10 yards down the field, then make the break. You got to give your quarterback time.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is I don't find any of these concerns, at least for me, none of them are in that even close to panic mode. You know what I mean? Only thing I'm panicking about week 1 and week 2 is basically the same thing as with training camp. Stay healthy. Let's keep as many of these guys healthy and active on that roster. You know, I want the 7 non-active players or deactivated players all to be healthy. Just, we don't need this guy this week. Oh, we don't need this guy this week.
That would be interesting. Yeah. We had a lot of healthy scratches last year too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Marlon Mack and stuff, but so what are we thinking about our secondary depth right now, Derek? When you look at the depth right now, are you happy? Do you like what you see?
Well, I mean, obviously, I know the Colts just released Tony Brown. So right now they're stuck at 5 corners and stuck at 5 safeties as well. It's strange to me because, Ballard has always been a guy that, like, the year after a season where you had a bunch of injuries on one position, he goes out of his way to make sure that there's more and more depth to it, which last year was the offensive line and it was the secondary, right? Well, it's funny because, I mean, thankfully we got Dennis Kelly back. So now that means we got 9 guys there. So, I mean, I feel a little more comfortable with the depth at that position. But then again, I'm sure Ballard's going to bring another corner onto the roster at some point. But, I am surprised that there's only going to be 5 safeties. But then again, we've heard the idea of Rodney Thomas playing more of a hybrid safety corner role sort of deal. It just depends on what he would look like in Gus Bradley's system. When it comes to like the depth of it all, I think it's fine, at least for the quality that you had. Dallas Flowers, I think, did a fantastic job in the preseason, and obviously he is a great special teams guy as well. So that gives you the opportunity to put him on there. Obviously you lose Armani Watts. That was a huge blow, but I do feel confident in the guys at safety that we do have at the moment. More confidence than what I had in Sendejo and guys like that. So, at the end of the day, I think we'll be all right, but it would not surprise me if Ballard continues to try to find somebody in that secondary to add one more potential piece, because I don't know if 5 corners and 5 safeties is going to get the job done.
Well, from what I understand, Gus is looking to run a lot more man coverage this year and a lot more 3 deep safety or 3 safety looks, right?
Yeah.
So utilizing that hybrid, like the Nick Cross type situation where you can cover a tight end, a running back, or a wide receiver, would be a good situation. Loyalist, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm very high on the secondary depth. I love what I saw from Dallas Flowers. I like how, Kenny Moore, if he can't fill in that slot, you can slide Isaiah Rodgers. These pieces, the way they can interchange and stuff. And like you said, you look at the top 4. Okay, Gilmore, Kenny Moore, and then Faison and Rodgers. Those 4 guys are all starters in my book. I mean, depending, and like I said, I like the ability that, it's gotten, the depth is allowing us now that, like we talked on Wednesday stream, you can interchange these, okay, we got a speed receiver, so let's get, Isaiah Rodgers out there and put Faison on the bench and be the backup and stuff. You get your big bodied receivers. Okay, now you're going to slip in Faison and Rodgers can, slide out. I just really enjoy the way these pieces are proven as far as moving around and stuff. And like you said, Tony Brown, he's been, coming and going. It's probably going to get him back on the practice squad 3 more times before we even get to week 1. So I do. And I think that you add that with the dynamic safety play that we have in Cross, Blackman, I'm just, the secondary is going to have a chance to really grow together and develop into being a very dynamic piece of this defense that we just haven't had in a very long time.
Well, I think the addition of Rodney McLeod's huge as well. It kind of reminds me back of the day when they brought Mike Mitchell or Pops Adams in, right? Where these are veteran guys that come in, have been starters their entire career, and have all this information. And you got young guys there that need developing, right? And, you know, McLeod is a guy who can come on the field, give you quality snaps, and yet at the same time increase the quality of the play of the young guys that are on the team as well. So I absolutely love that addition as well. Super Alien, what's up? Got a question here. He says, what's the minimum stat line you're going to accept from Paris Campbell to warrant him coming back for another season with the Indianapolis Colts? Derek?
Well, the stat line I'm going to give is not a number of receptions. It's not going to be a number of yards. It's not going to be a number of touchdowns. The stat line that I want to see is a minimum of 12 games played this year. That is the one. And, you know, I think the reporters asked about that literally yesterday with Paris Campbell. Like, you know, how's it feel to know that, like, you know, you haven't been able to play as much as you would have liked, and, you know, how that's affecting your status with this team potentially going forward. And, you know, he says it sucks that I haven't been able to do what I want to do because I end up getting hurt. You know, it's unfortunate, but, you know, he says he feels really good right now. And unfortunately, he's had some really bad run-ins with some really unfortunate injuries. Because at the end of the day, if he plays those games, then the stat lines, I think, are going to fill themselves. I think he has built a great connection with Matt Ryan in training camp already. We saw that in like the first 2 weeks of training camp. He was the number one guy. Like, he was getting targeted more than Pittman. And that's saying something, right? Because his speed and his ability to get open, like, is even better than Pittman's in some ways. So at the end of the day, I think the stat line's going to fill itself if he just remains healthy. If he plays 12 plus games this year, then I will feel much better about his ability to go forward. Now, I will say this. I won't want to give him a multi-year contract unless he plays at least 15 games. I need at minimum 15. If he plays 12, I'm like, okay, give you one more year. I want to see you increase on that again. If you do that again, then I'll say, okay, another good contract is going to come your way. But that's the big part here. It's not the stats that he's going to put on the field. It's the stat of being on the field.
Loyalist?
I 100% agree. I mean, that is the biggest, most important stat line. And the thing is, you say 12. Honestly, I don't even know if I bring him back at 12. Then, you know, if he's getting only 12 games, I need to know the circumstances around why did he miss those other games, you know what I mean? And things like that. But the thing is 15 is something I've been, you know, I'm like, if he gives me 15 games, I think he's going to be able to get 750 plus in receiving. I wouldn't be surprised to see anywhere from 6 to 8 touchdowns, you know, and that right there, if I get a solid production and number line like that or better, then I'm definitely going to be sitting there and going, okay, now, obviously, if he wants to come out and get paid like, you know, like all these other wide receivers did this last year, then I would have to A.J. Brown him and say, all right, appreciate it. Go see what you can find, you know. But as far as if he can make 15 games and be productive, and like I said, I don't think the production is nearly as big a question as just opportunity. You know, get out there and let your Ohio State flag fly and just bring back those days, you know what I mean, where you were just carefree and doing exact. And Matt Ryan, I'm telling you, with the way, if they use Paris Campbell the way you think, you know, in the mid routes and stuff, or take the top off, Matt Ryan can make those throws. That, you know, he's got plenty of arm to throw to a Paris Campbell, but he is so good at sitting there and getting those run after catch yards. You know, Lawrence, you were talking about how you find that little part. Well, with Paris Campbell, he's the guy that's going to get that separation. He's the guy that you're going to be like, oh my God, there's nobody within 2.5, 3 yards of him, you know? And then after he catches it, just let him do what he does. Man, I can't wait to see that.
I mean, he has been so productive when he's on the field. Just we haven't been able to see enough of it yet. Right. You know, there's never a question when he's on the field, he does make plays. It's just we've seen very little just because of the injuries.
Exactly. So I'm going to be in the middle of that. First off, what's up, Blue Nation? Appreciate you being in here. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm looking at 14 games. I want to see him 14 games. You look at it this way. If you missed, it's 17 game season. So if you miss 3 games, that's about the average amount that your average receiver is going to miss during a season. Maybe pull a hamstring or something like that, maybe rolled an ankle and need a day or 2 off, or something like that. That's your typical stuff. When you have to have surgery, that's the issues that Paris has had, that every time he's gotten hurt, he's needed surgery to repair it.
Right.
Okay. So, there's a difference here in the type of injuries that he's been having. Every receiver gets hurt. It's whether or not, how bad it is to whether they need surgery so that whether they can play or not. If he plays 14 games, he's going to have 1,000-yard season. I fully feel that way, you know? And you're right. I mean, when it comes to what we saw in training camp, him versus guys like Gilmore and Isaiah Rodgers and Kenny Moore, he's burning the snot out of all of them, right?
And not just making the berm ones, he's been making contested catches too against these guys.
Yes, he's going up, out jumping and catching people, over people. He's doing stuff that makes you look at him and go, oh my, that's our own Chase, right? But he's got to be on the field. All right. So yes, I get that. So my limit is 14 games. Please play at least 14 games this year. If you do that, I'll be more than happy. And I'll definitely give you at least another year extension to where in which you can then prove it, as Derek said, prove on a little bit further.
Yeah. And you said something there the Chase example. Okay. Remember what the Bengals were like without Jamar Chase? And then Jamar Chase came in and boom, all of a sudden they're off to the Super Bowl. I think Paris Campbell can really open up this offense if he stays healthy. And I'll be honest with you, I think he could be a better, more consistent receiver than Chase as far as just he's more experienced. And I know Chase is dynamic and all that, but I'm just saying that I feel like he can provide that open, full throttle offense. And then, my goodness. Okay, you start having to worry about 2 receivers and a tight end, and all of a sudden, what do you go? You look behind, and number 28 is like, oh, it's my turn to eat. I mean, Paris Campbell could be one of those X factors that allows this offense from being a good to a absolute dynamic offense.
Nomadic Brian, thank you so much for the YouTube super chat donation of $5. That's much appreciated. Thank you. He says, hey, here's my challenge. Wide receivers, get open and catch the damn ball. Pass rushers, I want multiple sacks. That's facts. All right. Getting open, I don't think they'll have a problem getting open. It's giving them time to get open. And we've already discussed this. Matt is going to need 2 or 3 seconds from the offensive line in order for receivers to get open. I think that'll happen. I think that if that happens, the receivers will do their part of the job. My issue is that catch prop. All right. We have seen a lot of drops over the last couple weeks. Okay. Some of them you kind of look at and go, they were contested. All right. But other ones, just straight drops, and I don't want to see that. I don't want to see any of our guys in the top 20 of drops in the NFL this season, because that is not doing Ryan or anyone else on this team any favors. Okay. As for pass rush, I think our sacks are going to go way up. Way up. You get pressure the way that Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner can get pressure up the middle. That's going to just push quarterbacks right to our defensive ends. Okay. And you're going to get a lot of, like DeForest Buckner last year, where you heard him for like the first 6 games was like, man, I'm getting there. I'm getting hurries. I'm getting pressures, but I'm not getting home. He'd probably get a lot of that too, because we got a lot of scrambling quarterbacks we play against. But those pressures will lead into cleanup sacks. Okay. And that's what I'm hoping we'll see a lot more out of. But thanks again, Nomadic. I appreciate you. Your guys' thoughts on this, Derek?
Wide receiver, get open, catch, pass rush, multiple sacks. Hey, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, people are still going to have questions about this wide receiver group and about them getting open. You know, I don't think that Michael Pittman's going to have too many problems with that, because I know Michael Pittman and Matt Ryan have already discovered a couple different ways to get him open in specific situations. Paris Campbell, his speed and his agility, I mean, when he's on the field, you see it. It happens. He gets that natural separation that just some guys just can't keep up with. So there's that. But you know, the Alec Pierce thing is going to be different for him. You know, I think this is something that is going to be a season-long process for him to finally learn how to get things. I kind of compared it. I think somebody asked me in my stream yesterday when I did this, like, do you think Alec Pierce's development is going to be like what Jonathan Taylor had his first year, where he wasn't good through the first half of the season, and then when he said like a switch kicked on in his head, and then he figured out how to run better against defenses, and then he started having those 150, 200 yard rushing games? Is Pierce going to have something similar? And I think it absolutely will. It's just like anyone, right? If you see something enough times, eventually it just becomes fluid. And for somebody that's as smart as Alec Pierce is, it's not going to take very long for him to figure it out, but I think he's going to need a little bit, like half a season, to get that switch to kick on. And then he's going to start getting a lot more open a lot more times. And when it comes to the pass rush, hey, listen, you got Kwity Paye, who now has full usage of both of his eyes. You have Yannick Ngakoue, who obviously is still one of the better pass rushers in the league, still at most consistent, at least at getting pressure. Obviously, DeForest Buckner is still the man when it comes to that. And, you know, Grover Stewart's still trying to develop his pass rushing ability, which he's gotten better. He still can improve a lot more, but then again, he's getting better every season. And, you know, you have a couple guys in Odangbo and Lewis who you also feel confident can go out there, get you a few sacks too every once in a while. I think this is going to be a more consistent pass rushing team than what we've seen in years past, which is really awesome because the Colts haven't had that for a while.
Loyalist.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you guys are saying, but I also want to bring to the attention that I think that this secondary, they're going to be able to get that tighter coverage early in these routes, which is going to force the quarterbacks to have to hold on to the ball. And the thing is, you know, you get Yannick Ngakoue, you know, you were talking about how DeForest was like, man, I'm just not. Well, now he's going to have that extra beat and a half, you know, to get to the quarterback, you know. And like you said, with this Nate Ollie system, just everybody full throttle. I mean, you get these young guys like Kwity. I mean, imagine this, okay? You get all this pressure from Defoe and Grover up the middle. You talked about how it's going to feed these guys out to Yannick and Kwity. Kwity is going to eat for days on that because he's got that motor and that speed. And the thing is okay, Kwity may not have to get all the way to the quarterback because just like you said, that quarterback's going to be looking for safe haven, and he's going to be looking at Kwitty's side, and he's like, go ahead. You know what I mean? But like I said, I think that this Gus Bradley scheme, if it's as aggressive as we've seen in training camp on the earlier phases of the routes, I think it's going to really give that. And then lastly, let's not forget Shaq Leonard now. He's really good at seeing these openings. If he's got this explosivity that he hasn't had all, you know, which, I mean, he's going to be able to pierce in there and get a couple of his own. I mean, I honestly really think that this team, what we end up with last year, wasn't it? Like 38 sacks or something?
Something like that. Yeah.
I honestly would love to see us get like a 75% increase. You know, I mean, get somewhere in that 55 range.
Wow.
You know, I really do. Because I mean, you sit there and you think about it. If Devo gets his 8 or 9, and then you sat there and you get Kenny Moore, if you get a little aggressive with Kenny Moore shooting for a couple, I'm telling you right now, I am super hyped to see what this defense does this year.
Cyborg 60+ sacks. That is like leading the league-ish.
Look, I mean, like Yannick averages around 9, right? He averages around 9. DeForest averages around 8. So that's 17. Grover's probably going to get 1 or 2. So that's not going to be anything.
I think that's going to go up.
I think his is low. The highest he's ever had in a season was 3. And that was like 2 years ago. So he doesn't get sacks. I mean, there's that. So 19, 20, and then Kwity Paye, if he gets 8, that's 28. And then, okay, so Lewis gets 4 or 5. So there's mid-30s. Dio maybe gets 4 or 5, maybe. there's, another, that's high end of 30s. And then, like, I don't know where else the other sacks come from. Like,
Well,
Eric Johnson might have a couple. So you might be in the mid 40s area, which is definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, from a standpoint of, in order for us to get above 50, somebody has to be fringing upon that 13 to 15 sack area. And I just don't know if Yannick or if any of these guys are going to actually be able to do that.
See, for me, I think that's where, okay, you're going to pick up some more sacks because we talked about Nate Ollie joining this scheme and that, even Bradley's just like, he's loved what he's seen from Grover. Grover was the one who really popped off. I honestly feel like Grover can get 5 or 6 sacks this year. Okay. I honestly believe Unique's going to be closer to the 13, 14 range because of now. I mean, first off, you're unleashing Grover. You sat there and said the most you had was 3, and Eberflus's job for Grover was hold your spot. Yeah, hold your spot.
True.
And so now that's not the case. Grover's like, get this guy out of my way. time to eat. And so, okay, maybe 55 is a little high, but that's where I'm setting the goal, just like with turnovers last year. I feel like you set those goals there. I think if you could sit there and, like I said, if Yannick can get close to 15, 14, you get Grover with 5 or 6. And then we have, Kenny Moore, he's going to find a couple opportunities to get a couple there. So I really do think 50 to 55 is a really good target for these guys.
Guys, real quick, we're 41 minutes in. Please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, tag that notification bell so that you are notified next time we go live or upload a video. I'm telling you, you're going to really want to pay attention to the Believe podcast, okay, that I have next week. I got some huge news that's coming out. These guys know what it is, but I can't share it with you guys yet because I'm not allowed to announce it.
But it does make us smile.
Loyalist, I'll just say this, man. If somehow, some way the Colts get 50 sacks this year, I feel bad for any quarterback that has to face them this year. Yeah. That is scary to think that somebody could do that. I mean, if that's true, the quarterbacks are going to hate playing the Indianapolis Colts this year.
I think that Titans offensive line is going to be like, what is this, the same team? Honestly, they're starting to drop off a little bit. And
they are. They don't have a big time receiver right now, and Derrick Henry's a year or two away from reaching his the end of his peak, and they're hoping Treylon Burks becomes AJ Brown, because if not, then it's gonna be a huge issue. So,
all right, guys. Again, if you want to help donate to the stream, feel free. Use the donation link that's scrolling across or at the top of the description. Or share. You know what? If you share the stream to your favorite social media, that helps us out a ton too. It gives us a little bit of an exposure. But there's also other places that you could check out. We're on Newsbreak, which there's a lot of stuff on there, including exclusive stuff that I drop on Newsbreak every week. This video is sponsored by Newsbreak. Newsbreak is an app used over 1.5 billion times a month by people just like you to get local news via articles or videos by those who are focused on that specific area. People like myself. Just use the link in the description of this video to download it. Then search a city, state, or someone specific, like myself, Colts Law. Then make sure to follow them so you'll get all the news fresh as it comes out. And you better be going and checking out the Backroom Collection, I say. This channel is proudly sponsored by the Backroom Collection. They do beautiful sports canvas art with football, basketball, baseball, and other sports themes. Special orders are accepted and autograph pieces are available. Many Indianapolis Colts sign pieces will be available beginning in November. Just use your discount code CL10 to purchase the pieces you want to spice up your living area. That's CL10. Yeah, so for some reason, DeForest Buckner became Mr. T overnight. That was whatever,
He had a little bit of a Hispanic flavor to him, too.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, it's all good. It's all good. DeForest, we love you here on the show. I'll tell you that much right now. Marquis Beverly, what's up? We should have the least sacks in the league, and I believe Marquis is talking about on the offensive side giving up sacks. Because now we have a quarterback that's not going to be BS and will scan the field instead of having his head stuck in one direction. Do you think that our sacks go down this year, Derek?
Well, I have to remember how many we gave up in the first place. And I don't remember, but I will say that, you talked earlier about, is Matt Ryan going to be more consistent at getting the ball out instead of, just keeping the ball in his hands? I think that, yes, naturally the sacks are going to go down a little bit. Like 32. You said, 22?
32.
32. Okay. 32. Okay. So that's almost 2 sacks a game. Yeah. I think that they'll go down a little bit. I mean, what was the best? What was it, like 28 when Andrew Luck was there for that final year? I think it was or was it 18? 18, right?
18, 19, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I could see somewhere in like the 25, 26 area for sacks this year, which will still be towards the better part of the end there. Because, he's going to hit guys like Hines and Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield a lot more frequently as well, trying to dump the ball down to those athletes and making it easier on himself, and also opening up the offense a little bit by forcing some people to come in and then being able to hit down deep. So I just think, yes, the sacks are going to go down because of the IQ of the quarterback that you have now running the ship rather than what you had before.
Jojo Doman, he can get sacks, Blue Nation says, but I don't know how much time JoJo's going to be on the field outside of special teams.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, you if JoJo Doman is getting that many snaps, that means we've have gone through some attrition at that linebacker spot.
And I don't want to see that.
No, sir. Not at all.
No, not that means that 2 out of 3 linebackers are hurt. And when I'm talking 3, I'm talking obviously Darius Shaquille Leonard, Bobby Okereke, and then Zaire Franklin, who are all in front of JoJo. Okay. So that makes me worried, if that happens. What's going on, Brandon? Appreciate you being in here. Super Alien wants to say, hey, they do have Robert Woods, but when was the last time Robert Woods was able to stay healthy for an entire? Robert Woods is now the Titans version of Paris Campbell. Okay, so he's going, but older. So
he's always been a number 2 receiver. He's never been the number 1.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Never has.
Yeah, he's definitely more of that supporting type wide receiver. Yeah, I agree on all aspects.
Brian says Ryan will be able to get the ball out. Yes. Rivers only got sacked 19 times. Well, Rivers and Matt Ryan, they both have that, experience in knowing how to scan and get rid of the football quickly. So that's always good.
Yeah. The big difference there is that left tackle spot. You had AC for Rivers, whereas now we've got Matt Pryor and stuff. And like I said, AC wasn't letting anybody get to Rivers, whereas Matt Pryor, he's going to have trouble with that speed rush, and a lot of these AFC West edges are pretty good at that particular skill set.
Who leads our team reception wise at the tight end position? Derek?
Well, I assume it's probably going to end up being Mo. Just for the sake of, obviously Jelani Woods is still a long ways away from being in that particular situation. But I think Mo might be a little bit different this year for the fact that I think Matt Ryan's actually going to attempt to get him the ball more frequently in the red zone. I know the Colts tried to do that a little bit more frequently last year, and, Carson Wentz didn't have a great connection with him a bunch of times. But I think that Matt Ryan's going to consistently get Mo Alley-Cox the ball more in the red zone. So that's what I'm looking for. I think reception yard-wise, you might have the argument for Kylan Granson, because Kylan Granson's going to be more of that guy in the middle of the field that can make those yards after catch. But I think when it comes to just where it matters in the red zone, I think Mo's going to get a lot more opportunities this year.
Loyalist?
Yeah, for me, I think Kylan Granson's the guy. I think you're going to have to keep Mo in a little bit more to help out with that pass protection. I do agree whenever you get into the red zone, that's when you sit there and get your basketball squad out there and just throw as many options and say, Matt, just pick any one of those guys, But as far as getting down the field and matriculating the ball down the field, I'm definitely looking at Kylan Granson. And I know that's a lot of people are on the fence with him. I'm telling you guys what I've saw at training camp and the steady progression. Yes, he still has to work with the drops. But let's remember, we had a certain tight end that had that drop history and continued that drop history, but yet was still very productive. Matt Ryan loves his tight ends, and I really do believe that, yes, I understand Jelani Woods, but he's a rookie. He's not going to get as many opportunities as Kylan Granson's going to get. And I think with opportunities and the fact that Kylan's not going to have to be the guy that they hold in, not the guy to hold in for pass pro, I think he's going to have your most opportunities.
What about end of game or end of half? You need your 45 to 60 yards from the end zone, and you need a Hail Mary. You got like 2 seconds left. So a Hail Mary to go try to score a touchdown. What are your thoughts on having Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Strawn, Mo Alley Cox, and Mr. Woods out on the field? Just put them all together and throw it and see who catches the football.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, who's guarding it? Yeah, you get Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, you get Mo, and you get Jelani out there. Like, yeah, that's the best case scenario. Like, who's stopping a guy that's 6'3", 6'4", 6'6", 6'7"? Like, I mean, who's doing that? No one. Like, Jelani is out jumping anyone that gets in his way. I don't care if the corner runs and gets a head start and up there. Jelani's hands are still up where he is. Like, come on.
Only problem is if Mo's on the field in that situation, I feel like they're going to have to hold him in tight to give Matt Ryan those extra 3 or 4 seconds. I mean, I know what you guys are saying, but you know what? The rest of these guys are going to have plenty of time to get down there and say, pick me.
Right. Alien, what's up? Says, does Ryman end up taking that left tackle job from Pryor sometime this season?
Okay. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Pryor is going to be one of those guys that you're going to really start hearing more noise from next year. This year, it's all about the reps. It's all about the practice. It's all about getting that technique down. I mean, I like what the young man has shown a little bit in camp, but he has also shown that he's not where we were hoping that he would be coming in. Remember, guys, 18 games. That's all he played in college at that position was 18 games. Okay. Shortened COVID season and then the full season. I honestly think that he's more of in the conversation next year. This year, yes, if he's in there, I think he's still your second choice, barring any additions or anything to the roster that we have now.
I mean, it depends on how bad Matt Pryor looks. I mean, it all depends on that. I mean, we've seen Matt Pryor, and he's going up against guys like Yannick Ngakoue in practice all the time. So, I mean, what better way to get yourself acclimated to a new position than facing one of the better guys in the NFL at what he does, right? So, at the end of the day, I mean, I'll take my chances with Pryor. He's going to need a little bit of time to get himself into the situation, but I think a few weeks into it, he's going to be fine. I mean, we brought him in for a trade and nobody knew anything about him. He went in there and replaced Braden Smith for 5-6 weeks at that spot. And he turned into the best offensive lineman that we had on the field at that time. And yes, was better than Quentin Nelson during that time frame. So he did really well in stepping into that situation. So ultimately it's just about getting reps again. And unless he starts stinking it up, then I don't see any way that Ryman takes the spot from him.
Darren Manus has a really good question here. Do you think our second half defense will be better under Gus Bradley? That's an interesting question, considering we'll probably be playing a little bit more man than what Eberflus, and it can't be much worse. We had the worst second half defense in the NFL last year. I mean the worst, right? When it comes to yardage and points given up, we were the worst in the league. We were second best in the league in the first half, but yes, we were the worst in the league in the second. So that's, I mean, let's be fair. Gus Bradley does not have a really high bar to jump over. He could step over that bar, right?
Yes. 100%, dude. 100%. I mean, it always felt like the tale of two halves with the Colts defense. And it sucks because, like, how many times over the last, 3 or 4 years did we say it about Matt Eberflus's defense, right? There'd be a few times where the second half defense, it would get better. But, like, if the defense was on fire in the first half, it seemed like as if Eberflus just said, all right, we're going to just stop doing what we were doing. We're just going to play basic, soft Tampa 2 defense and let anything 5-10 yards in front of you catch it, and we'll just react. Like, it felt that way all the time. And you're right. Like, it can't possibly get any worse than that. It can't. So at the end of the day, yes, I do think he's going to be better because one thing Gus Bradley always preaches is being aggressive at all times, not just in one half, not in certain situations, being aggressive in everything you do, regardless of what formation you put yourself in. It's okay to play some kind of Tampa 2 stuff if you have parameters in place that allow for your guys to be a little bit more aggressive coming up the field. So at the end of the day, I do think that there is going to be a little bit more consistency throughout the game with the defense, which I think is very important.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, there's Bradley, if he can get that rotation figured out, and we've talked about, like, in the Ravens game last year, that D-line was gassed. Eberflus wanted them just to hold their spot. They were thankful because they didn't have much to go chasing down Lamar Jackson, and stuff. But the thing is you're going to have better, more consistent quarterback play, which means that your defense is going to be able to go to the sideline and not have to worry about in 2 plays or 3 plays because your quarterback decided to throw some sort of funky left-hand pass. You know what I mean? They're going to be able to, he's going to check down. He's going to move the chains. They're going to be able to catch their breath. They're going to be able to get themselves ready to go back out on the field. I mean, yes, there's still going to be, turnovers and, quick change. But I think that that's going to lessen quite a bit because I honestly believe that this offense is going to be so much more consistent with a Matt Ryan that we lacked last year, because not every play is going to have to be, a game-winning play. Now Matt Ryan's like, oh, check down for 7 yards to JT? Sure. And then if it turns into a game-changing play, great. If it doesn't, keep the chains moving. Defense is going to catch their win and stuff. And then with that Nate Ollie scheme, okay, if these guys have more energy and then they're also more full throttle at the quarterback and stuff, I just really feel like that tenaciousness is going to wear the offenses down a lot more, to where they're not going to have it in their legs to keep banging their heads up against this defense equally.
So Nomadic Brian brings up a good question. Is Gus Bradley's defense more physically demanding than Matt Eberflus's was? And I can give you an answer based off of scheme. Okay. If Bradley plays more man, like they're saying they're going to, then it's going to be more physically demanding than what Flus's zone scheme was. Because in zone, you're just standing there for a while and reacting. Whereas in man, you are running with the guy full go, from the get-go. So that's physically more demanding in that aspect. Gus's is easier to execute, Flus's was easier to execute, which is why he ran that so much, because he had young guys he was trying to get into that scheme. He built this team. Flus did a great job building this defense and getting them right, but it was time to move on to get to a different group of a different level, I should say. But in the front seven, it's going to be easier because depending upon the position that they're at, it's easier to try to move forward than hold your line. Okay. It's easier to just try to get around somebody than make sure you're not moved out of your spot, because you're more worried about everybody around you when you're trying to hold your zone, your spot, right? Especially for your big boys. Whereas in Gus's, where it's an attacking, all you got to do, you're worried about what's in front of you. You're not worried about the side stuff. So it's easier for the front seven in Gus's scheme but it's more physically demanding in the secondary. At least that's where I'm reading it from.
Yeah, and honestly, like you said, you're engaged. You're constantly engaged with a 300+ pound man fighting to hold that spot. If you're Grover, you're engaged with two or
two.
I mean, and the thing is now now these guys just get to shuck the block and let the wind run through their hair on their way to the quarterback. I mean, so yeah, that exertion level. I mean, now you're just exploding towards the quarterback versus, like you said, constantly trying to work against one or two hosses.
All right, let's get another Master Blaster. Why didn't the Colts cut Troy Brown or Trevor Denbo? Well, first off, they wanted Denbo. Okay, they wanted Denbo because they feel like he's going to be the special teams ace that we had with like Odom in them, in order to keep Sterling Weatherford. Look, I think all three of us was upset about the Sterling Weatherford thing. But I stated beforehand, before the cuts ever happened, I said, look, there's going to be a guy that everybody thinks should make the team that will not make the team. Happens every year. Last year was Andre Sauchere, right? We all thought he should have made the team. He didn't. Next thing you know, he's starting for the Philadelphia Eagles. The same thing with Sterling Weatherford. It is a puzzlement to a lot of us. But I think it was because just special teams issues, I think, might have been the underlying cause of why he was not picked over a guy like Trevor Denbo or Troy Brown, who's not on the team now currently either.
Yeah. And the thing is let's be honest, you got basically three cornerbacks in your starting lineup nowadays. Okay. So now you look past that and you've got Brown, Flowers. So you're in your second wave. Okay. Well, with Weatherford, you've got Bobby Okereke and Shaq, and then you've got Zaire and EJ Speed. So now, Weatherford was in your third, realm of backup and stuff. So it's a numbers game. And honestly, if they'd have put Brown out there, I think he would have gotten swooped up by a team. You put Weatherford out there. It was a gamble, and now you're gambling a guy who might produce on special teams, who flashed a little bit, but he's still so far on the depth chart. It's, you just have to risk it. And then, like you said, we got to quit letting our coaches become head coaches. So they quit taking our guys.
Derek, how'd you feel about the Sterling Weatherford thing? I mean, even Ballard said, in his presser afterwards, that was his toughest cut, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could see how, upset that Ballard felt that he couldn't keep him around. Like, I was just like everybody else. I mean, everybody else thought that, like, oh, Weatherford, after what you saw leading the team in tackles in the preseason and doing something on special teams, you thought this definitely made sense to keep Weatherford on the roster. And then sure enough, they chose to keep JoJo Domann instead. So at the end of the day, you wanted Domann because you thought there were some qualities in Domann from a special teams perspective and some other things. And Domann was maybe a little bit more aggressive in some aspects than Weatherford was. It came down to the finest of details. And of course, when he was asked about that, he said that when we signed Grant Stewart, that, we knew this kid we know this kid's going to be special for us on special teams. Brought up guys like Matthew Adams, George Odom, and Glasgow, the guys who over the previous few years were like staples of the special teams for us. And he compared them to that. So, I mean, that shows you what they thought of him in the linebacker position. And, that's why they got it. I knew as soon as that happened, as soon as that trade happened, I'm like, oh, this must mean Weatherford's gone. It must mean it, because somebody's going to get cut here. I knew it. Like 10 hours after that trade happened, I was like, yep, somebody's going to get cut here that nobody wants to see. And sure enough, that's what happened. I mean, look, at the end of it, feelings aside and everything else, the Colts had to make a move on somebody. And, they felt Domann was better on special teams than Weatherford was. And even though Weatherford might have been a better player on the football field for defensive purposes, the odds of Weatherford playing with this unit just wasn't high. So there's no point in keeping him there if you're not going to use him just for special teams, and he's not the best special teams guy. So at the end of the day, that's what happens.
Alex Bob drops $3 in the donation jar. Appreciate you. He used that link right there that's scrolling by, or at the top of the description. He says, love the content. Shout out Colts Loyalist for always being so positive and excited. Where do you think our offensive line ranks amongst the leaders this year? Are we a top 5, top 10 offensive line, or do you think there's a lot left to prove? I'm adding on to it, but
yeah, I me personally, I don't think we're in the top 5 this year. I think that you have too many questions at that left tackle spot. You know, the right guard. You know, right now I'm not even. Is Danny Pender still going to be our right guard? There's been so much shuffling around with the depth at that O line. I do think once you start getting Dennis Kelly healthy, and I think that elevates this line, but I still think we're outside the top 5 myself.
Yeah, I kind of agree here. And as much as I hate saying that,
he said I was positive and optimistic. So now I feel terrible.
I mean, we're definitely a top 10 offensive line unit, no question about it. And that's good enough to win you games at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, just from where this offensive line was just 3 years ago, I mean, it's a completely different offensive line. Your left tackle is no longer there, and he was a very much underappreciated player. Obviously, your right guard, who, I mean, was your most reliable offensive lineman that you have had over the last 3 seasons, 4 seasons for that matter, sure enough, is now gone. So at the end of the day, you know, you're having to fill 2 offensive line positions. And, you know, and unfortunately, you know, guys like Quentin Nelson, they get hurt throughout the year. They don't miss games, but the hurt sometimes affects their play, which sucks. And then, you know, Kelly's had to miss some games over the last few seasons, some for unfortunate reasons, some for injury and COVID. And then on top of it, you know, Braden Smith got hurt a lot over last season. So, you know, you got a bunch of these injuries going on. It's just the overall cohesiveness of the unit is not there from what it was 2 years ago. So obviously this offensive line has dropped back to reality a little bit, but at the end of the day, they still are a very good offensive line and they'll still get the job done regardless.
yeah, I think they're a top 5, top 10. I don't think they're top 5. I agree with you guys. I'm going to drop something else on there. Big Q better make a huge improvement during the season than what we saw in training camp and preseason games, because he did not look like himself at all the last 2 months. I mean, at all. He was getting beat by undrafted free agents, okay, in practices and in games. And that's just not something that we're used to seeing. And he says that he feels as healthy and as pain-free as he's ever felt. So maybe he's just kind of holding back a little bit so that, you know, he could put, you know, everything into it during the regular season. And, you know, if you do that, then obviously you're not playing at your best during that. So hopefully that's the case.
Something else, and this is just me watching, I feel like he might have been working on a couple things, you know what I mean? And instead of, yes, trying to sit there and win each and every battle, I just felt like there was maybe a couple things he was trying to work with, mostly with his engaging step and stuff. And I could be wrong. Like I said, it just, something looked like he was working consistently on the same thing over and over. And I'm wondering if maybe that also played into a little bit of the lackluster performance now.
It feels like this team, a lot of these players are taking that sort of approach, you know, like not giving it all in these preseason games and are kind of working on some things to get ready for the regular season. I wonder if that's been the approach a lot of times.
That is a good question. Super Alien asks about Marcel Dabo. I don't know a whole lot about him personally, and I'm not afraid to tell you, you know, if I don't know, I don't know. I'm going to kind of lean on you guys. Do you guys know much about Marcel and any information about him that we can share?
I mean, just, I know that we have that exemption, so he's not going to count against the practice squad. We seen him at camp, but it was always with the 3s and the 4s, you know what I mean? So his opportunity was there, but it just wasn't against talent that I would be willing to say, oh, okay, yeah, I can, because he flashed a couple times, but there again, I'm not trying to disregard the whole training camp. I mean, but like I said, it's interesting. I think we'll be able to know more probably halfway through the season. Let's see if this kid gets any opportunities, to show himself, because he did do a couple special teams things that, raised an eyebrow during training camp. So if he gets that opportunity, I think that's going to be his biggest chance.
Do you have any information on Dabo?
I have nothing. You guys, your guys' links to that is better than mine.
Okay. So shout out to Alex Castillo. Appreciate you. He's been in here since we initiated this, and I appreciate the $5 donation through Super Chat, even though he didn't drop a comment or question. It's blank, but
hi.
Shout out to Alex. Appreciate you, my guy. Thank you. If I see you drop something in here, we're going to be ending this here shortly. It's been already, well over an hour and 10 minutes since we started this, and Derek gave me a time limit when we initiated. I don't think.
Hey, I'm good. I'm still good. I'm still good for a while. So.
Okay. All right.
I'm good. I'm not in a rush right now. We're still good.
He just straight up. Thanks for the content. Hey, you know what?
Alex, appreciate you, man.
Yep. Appreciate you. Nomadic asks about JT bust out as usual. We talked about that at the beginning of the stream. So after we end this, just go straight back to about the 5-minute mark. I think we go right from there. I think that's one of the very first things that happens, right? Is we talk about that. So I think I got something else. Yes. We have a $1 donation in here from Colts fan 69 says, where does this team on paper rank in terms of the best defense of all time? All time? Oh man,
I don't know. I can't tell you all the way back to the Baltimore days, but I can definitely tell you that, like, on paper, to me, probably is like in totality, like, of years that we've seen. I mean, I think this might be the second or third best of all time on paper. On paper, it's not production, but I mean, when you look at it from the perspective of that 06-07 team that went on to beat the Bears in the Super Bowl, that was the best Colts defense that we've ever seen, because those guys were some real good Hall of Fame. I mean, there's like some Hall of Famers on that list. There's a couple different Hall of Famers, and half that defense is in the Colts Ring of Honor at this point.
But see, that's the thing about that defense. If you remember right, statistically, it was not good. You know what I mean? But
it was good in the postseason.
Exactly.
When Bob Sanders came back from injury.
But you remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but I mean, they were running the ball all up and down us, most of the season. It wasn't uncommon for them to get 250, 300 yards rushing on us. But like you guys said, we hit that postseason and that switch flipped and Bob Sanders came back. And I mean, because Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney were always just amazing. Okay. But the thing was you always had the linebacker play was always solid, but that D line and it just never was really good at stopping the run. And that's what used to kill us. I mean, especially back then, when running the ball was more prevalent. But the thing was I think this defense has a chance to be the best since the Colts became the Indianapolis Colts. Because you look at every level of this defense, and you've got ballers. I mean, we've talked about you want to get a dog. Well, okay, we've got a whole D line full of those. You know what I mean? You sit there and you want to, you look at your linebacking core. I would put Shaq Leonard and Bobby O against any of the linebacking tandems that we had in the past.
100%. Just put Shaq Leonard in there. I mean, you can add it to anyone. I mean, and the Colts have had some decent linebackers over their history, but I mean, Leonard just absolutely blows them out the water. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
And then, like I said, Bobby O. I mean, Bobby O is top shelf.
Bobby O's no scrub either, man.
No,
Yeah,
sir.
he ain't no scrub.
Look,
and
I
if
don't
this-
see how you guys can't name it number one.
I did.
I know. I'm right here. Okay, look at the number of Pro Bowlers, All Pros we have on this defense.
Yeah.
I mean, we have literally 7 Pro Bowlers / All Pros on this defense. The Colts have never had that before. Now,
here's
on
the thing.
paper-
If I knew Stephon Gilmore was actually like at the back to the level that we think he can be, then I would have no problem doing that, because Stephon Gilmore, status-wise, is the best corner the Colts have ever had in their program ever. I mean, Indianapolis has never had an elite corner. Never in its history has never had an elite corner. And Stephon Gilmore could be the first one ever. And unfortunately, he's 31 years old. So it kind of sucks.
Buckner, best 3 tech we've ever had.
Probably, yeah.
Leonard, best linebacker we've ever had.
Yes.
All right, so we've already established that right there. And then we got 2 Pro Bowl / All Pro / guys at cornerback, right? And now you go look at Nick Cross, who people have been like, I see bits and pieces of Bob Sanders in that kid.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that he's Bob Sanders, but there's times when he reminds you of him. And Blackman is Blackman. When he's on the field, he makes plays. Dude was on Pro Bowl trajectory. This team on paper is the best defense ever for the Colts. I think maybe Colts, period, over like the entire span, all since from the Super Bowl era, right? But they still got to prove it on the field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That I agree with that 100%. Zach Avery, I've had you sitting up there because we've been talking, answering that $1 donation by Colts Fan 69. $10 on the super sticker. I appreciate you, my guy. Thank you so much. We're gonna get back in here. We got a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah, there's a couple good ones in here.
Yeah, better bookends than Looney Tunes. Okay. Darren, of course. Who's your top 5 standout players? Understanding that we had 7 Pro Bowlers. I think I already listed that like a few episodes ago. But,
Yeah.
top 5 standout players. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is at right there. Darius Leonard or Shaquille is up there. DeForest Buckner. After that, you can kind of get a little bit of one way or another, right? I mean,
yeah.
you could look at a lot of different guys because we got a lot of Pro Bowlers. I mean, Quentin Nelson, you got standout player Quentin Nelson, right? Okay, so that's 4, and then that 5th one is just a bunch of Pro Bowlers or could be Pro Bowlers that you could just drop in that.
Yeah, and the thing is the youth of this team. I think we've got some youth. You mentioned Blackman. I think Blackman is going to be one of those guys that we look at 3 years down the line and be like, Ballard did a phenomenal job of drafting this young man, because if he stays healthy, he just gives this defense so much range and so much toughness. I mean, we could go on, and I know I'm the optimistic one, so I'll back off a little bit. But yeah, this roster, I would say you could ask who the top 10 are and still be able to give honest, legitimate, solid answers.
Who would you put number 5, Derek?
For the number 5 outstanding player. Well, you said JT, Shaquille Leonard,
Buckner, and Nelson. It's tough.
It is tough. And it's great that I have to say that. And it's funny because the 2 veterans that we picked up, I think you could make an argument for that, but I haven't seen them play in a Colts uniform yet. So I have to go with Kenny Moore, just for the fact that, Kenny Moore is now getting the recognition that he deserves. And yet, I mean, we didn't mention Julian Blackman. We didn't mention a couple other things. So it's great that I can name 8 or 9 different players here and say that these guys are easy top 10.
I love that. Get solar.
PJ Joe in here dropping some money. Says, go get yourself
You
some
only
solar
get
power.
solar for about 4 months in Indiana. And then by that time, what do you
And
have left?
Yeah, and like 2 of that's in the summer, 2 of that's in the winter, and the rest is spring and autumn. You have no solar power. Maybe wind power. Maybe we have tons of wind power. That's why we got all these stupid windmills out here around
wind
Elwood and
turbines.
stuff. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Derek, you said the 2 veterans. So who are the 2 veterans you're talking about?
Yannick and Stefan.
See, so you don't even have Matt Ryan in the conversation.
I haven't even mentioned Matt Ryan.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know,
and that's the crazy part. We didn't even mention him.
I know, right?
And he's the quarterback. I mean, think
Right.
about that for a hot second.
That's
Come on,
crazy.
look at the talent that this team has acquired, right?
Yeah, we have you got Ryan Kelly, that's there that obviously is very, very good. I think Grover Stewart.
Michael Pittman's going to start entering that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we've got guys. We could lead the league in Pro Bowlers / All Pros again this year. Inside the Horseshoe Podcast on here with a $10 super chat. Appreciate you. Says, enjoy the stream, guys. This team should win the AFC. Notice he didn't put South.
He didn't say South. He said AFC.
AFC.
The entire thing, baby.
The whole conference. Matt, oh my goodness, dude.
Hey,
all right.
He's right here next to me on the wagon.
God, yeah.
Let's go.
Put that man on
driving the wagon.
Right,
what are you talking about?
Right here.
You got the map and he's got the reins. That's exactly what's going on, right? Hey, but I like that. I like that kind of that look, man. Inside the horse. Yeah, Matt said, hey, I absolutely agree. This defense should be insane, and it should. This could be like defensively, stat wise. I've had people like refer to the 2000 Ravens, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a lot to prove, right? But talent wise, we have the people on paper to do it.
Yeah,
but there's a difference between having the names and executing.
Yeah,
right. And we need to see this executed.
And it all depends on if they all stay healthy too. That's the big question, right?
Huge.
Like, I mean, no question, Stephon Gilmore still got it. He just needs to stay healthy. Yannick obviously still has it. DeForest Buckner still has it. We got to see how Leonard feels. And as long as our corners aren't getting hurt, then this defense is going to be legit.
All right. So hold on.
Did he get it?
I did get it, and I accidentally shut that down. It was complete utter accident. Let's go back here to this $20 by Joey B in the donation in the tip jar. You see that 8 minutes ago. Says, appreciate you and Loyalist for the content you all provide. Hope this help a little at least. Thank you
very much,
Joey B. You are
very kind, sir.
Very kind. Thank you so much. You guys, honestly, the donations were kind of slim pickings the first hour, and in the last 20 minutes, they have been dropping like crazy. I appreciate that so much from all of you. Matt says it's going to be like the 85 Bears.
I don't know if I go that far. Hey, listen. If it is like the 85 Bears, then y'all want to pick up the Colts defense in fantasy, because that team about to have 20 fantasy points in fantasy every week.
I told everybody last year to pick up the Colts defense in fantasy, and some people did, and they won. I said, get JT, get the Colts defense. And there's a certain person that did that and won his fantasy league because he listened to me.
The Colts are the number 2 defense in fantasy because they're going to force turnovers. Like, at the end of the day, that's what matters, is they're going to force turnovers, and they're going to get an increase in sacks.
I love it. Loris with the hot take on fantasy because, he's like, hey, this is as no-brainer as he can get.
I don't even play fantasy.
Michael Pittman this year is a no-brainer too, because Michael Pittman's about to have 100 receptions this year when Matt Ryan is his quarterback. 100%. Easy.
And don't forget, Coach Reich said Nyheim Hines is going to be a pretty hot take in this.
Yeah, he's more of a later round guy, but still, though, it's still if you can get him by round 10 or 11, then that's a smart move.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Like I said, I don't know a lot about fantasy because I don't play fantasy. but I understand where the points come from. And I know that, your running backs are huge in fantasy. And if they're going to produce, then obviously, and I was like, Jonathan Taylor, the way he ended his rookie season, he's going to blow up this year. And he did. And then as soon as Darius Leonard said, we're getting 40 turnovers or something like that. And I'm like, he only came up like 2 short, like 2. That's it. They almost hit their goal, which is nuts. Right. But a lot of that had to do with, 12 turnovers from a certain linebacker that we have that finally got some recognition on the NFL top 100 because the players, his own, colleagues voted him there over all the other linebackers. So that's really awesome.
I agree with TJ Joe, the 2000 Ravens. I mean, I understand everybody's all about the Bears, but 2000 Ravens defense was.
They had 2 of maybe the best position players in history of the NFL on that team, right? Ray Lewis and that one safety guy with some hair on his face.
Yeah.
But they were just smoking good.
And the thing is I would say that our defense is one of the few that can look at that linebacker spot whenever you're comparing them. And there's not a lot of drop off. I mean, yes, they were different style of players, but you go from Ray Lewis to Shaq Leonard, a healthy Shaq Leonard. And I would argue that there's not a lot of teams that say, oh, there's not much drop off in that comparison. They look at the Colts and they can sit there and say, yeah, our 2 and 3. I would say our group of linebackers was better than theirs, but yet Shaq and Ray are fairly close.
Mm-hmm.
To put Shaq and Ray Lewis in the same conversation,
Right.
Completely different linebackers, though. Completely different linebackers.
Totally, yeah.
But like in the end of the day, when you look at the stat wise and everything, still Shaq has kept up with him in even the tackling category, which was Ray Lewis's thing. That was Ray Lewis, be the enforcer, right?
Yeah.
Obviously from a pound for pound, just destroy people with a hit scenario. Obviously Ray Lewis was that guy, but like Leonard has more turnovers now than Ray Lewis almost had in his entire career. And he's only 4 years into it. Ray Lewis played for how many years? 12, 13 years in the NFL. And Leonard's doing things in 4 years that Lewis, an all-time, probably the greatest linebacker of all time, couldn't do in 12, 13 years. That's insane to think about.
Yeah, Ray Lewis was the type of guy, he was going to have potential to end or shorten your career. Whereas, like you said, with Shaq Leonard, he's more of I'm going to get you in the backfield. I'm going to wrap my arms around you, and all of a sudden I'm going to find a way to knock that ball loose. He has more of that serpentine style of play. He just finds his little gaps and stuff, and then just he makes the plays. And the thing is both of these guys, the thing that they had was they were game changers. They made plays when their teams needed it the most.
Well, yeah. You look in the 4 years that he's been in the NFL, right? He's got 3 Pro Bowls and 3 All-Pros. And Darius Shaq Leonard has 30 passes defensed at linebacker. 30 passes defensed. 11 interceptions. That's nasty. All right. Then 17 forced fumbles in 4 years. What? That's crazy.
It's absolutely insane. It's
and then 7 fumble recoveries, right? Mm-hmm. And then 15 sacks. And he didn't even have a sack last year. But, he had some tackles for loss and quarterback hits and stuff like that. But dude's numbers are off the chart. And he averages, tackle-wise, he averages about 110 a year. Or no, I'm sorry, about 130 a year.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
And
all while on a hurt ankle, by the way.
And he's not been healthy yet.
Ankle, by the way.
There you go. Yeah. And now cyborgs like Lewis had 17 seasons. Dude, I don't think Leonard's going to play 17 seasons the way he plays. But whatever time that he does play, Leonard is going to be a huge impact on the field. All
Yeah,
right.
And like you said, well, those stats as far as in coverage, and everybody's like, well, that's where Shaq isn't the best is in coverage. I'm like, hey, if that's not the best in coverage, that's just because he's fantastic at stopping the run. So I'll take that.
Right? Absolutely, guys. All right, we're an hour and a half in. I am going to end up killing this stream here in a minute. This is the longest stream I've had that wasn't a Patreon only live stream that we hold every Wednesday now at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you're welcome to join by joining our Patreon for only $5 a month. Link is in the description. Had to drop that in there.
1 second.
What's up?
I'm
Oh.
assuming 1 second.
Okay. Well, all right. We're all going to sit here and watch Derek because he's.
I thought he was going to break out a
No, I'm
dance.
good.
on
I'm
us.
good. I'm back. I just had to grab something real quick.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I got all kind of stuff that I'm doing. Please smash that like button. All right, because honestly, first off, thank you all for the donations and the support that you've given us. Please hit that like button. That helps so much. That way, other people, when this is over, it has, the higher the likes, the more people will see it. The YouTube is crazy that way.
I think this is pretty much that's for Derek. Pizza guy.
Did you get enough for all of us?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Hey, listen, I had to come in. I had to do something, man. I
appreciate you, dude. I appreciate you. That's almost enough to buy a pizza.
Almost. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, Little Caesars, yeah. Hey, it's the official pizza sponsor of the NFL. All right.
There you go. There you go. Hey, my son works at Papa Murphy's, and I love Papa Murphy's. So,
well, it was funny. That stream that I had, that was like a 4.5 hour stream, the longest stream I've ever done. And I spent 2 hours waiting for a Little Caesars pizza.
That's what I
because
think
that was where that was the funniest because people always keep reminding me, hey, Derek, you ever going to do a pizza stream again? Like, I hope I never have to do one of those streams ever again where I have to wait 2 hours for a freaking pizza.
The best part about that stream, though, is I had to leave every once in a while during, but I would keep coming back just to see if the pizza got shipped.
And the podcast is still going. Yeah, I don't know how I survived that long, but I did. It was awesome.
Podcast sponsored by Papa Murphy's.
There you go.
This podcast is sponsored by Papa Murphy's.
I like Papa Murphy's. Most people are like, why would you do a take and bake? Yeah, and I'm like, well, you can cook it the way you want it. You don't have to worry about being overcooked or undercooked, or you cook it the way you want it, but they put it together for you. So
it works great for content creators because sometimes they don't eat until 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And it's like, hey, I want that hot and fresh.
Yeah. I get a freaking full-time job and then end up having to come home. I do podcasting. I got a late lunch.
Yeah, you can tell on our Patreon where Lawrence is like, okay, because that belly-o-meter, he starts talking to him. He's like, I got to go eat, fellas.
Yeah, that's my problem. See, I wake up because my hours are weird, right? I get up at 10 in the morning and I go to bed at 2 at night. And when I get up at 10, I don't eat. I don't end up eating.
I'm the same way. I don't eat right away. I eat later. Yeah.
Way later. And sometimes it's 8, and then I'm in my live stream. Chuck knows when I'm doing my Patreon, I'm like, I gotta find something to eat and quick. All right. Because my stomach is growling at me. But hey, I got another one here. Hold on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, take it easy.
There we go. Cyborg, what up? Drop $10 into the tip jar using that link in the description. Appreciate you, my guy. That's freaking awesome. I really appreciate you. A lot of this will be able to help us out a ton. This help pay the bills. The stuff in the donation jar, they only take 4% out.
Yeah, I was gonna say Streamlabs is a lot better with taking only Streamlabs only takes like not even 10% of the tips versus YouTube taking 30%.
Yeah, it's nuts. Randy says Papa Murphy's is a hood legend, only pizza that can accept food stamps. Hey, you know what? My son works there, and every time he works, he's allowed to bring a pizza home.
That's dope.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, you know what you got to do, right? Right?
You ever
Save
hungry?
me some money.
You ever hungry? Go get a freaking pizza.
Yeah, work 6 days a week.
Yeah, and I got a card. Oh my goodness! Wait a minute.
What?
Cyborg dropped another $10.
What the heck? Hey, Cyborg.
Awesome, thank you.
Cyborg bringing the heat. Love it, man.
Cyborg's dropping all kind of money. I appreciate you, man.
Awesome.
Now, another thing is I get a card from my son where I get 50% off $20 or more. So that's another huge. He don't even have to work. I just walk in and be like, all right, give me 2 pizzas, and I'll pay $10 for it. You know,
nice.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice.
Inside, Matt's like, I need to work there now.
If I wasn't being more serious about my diet, then I would probably do the same thing.
Well, the thing is they have multiple different types. They have keto pizzas and all kinds of stuff. So we
really are ghetto. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're high off of something. You don't know what you want, but you're like, I want to go in there. I want some of that flaming hot Cheeto pizza. You throw that in there.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, you walk in, they have everything. They have all types of sauces and stuff. It's really good. It's really, really good. Are you guys going to plan a podcast group tailgate this year together or anything? That would be cool. Joe Roast says.
Cody and I have entertained that idea for a few months now. Probably not this year for me, since I'm going to be down in Texas for the majority of the season. So I'm not going to be able to do that, but probably next season is when Cody and I are looking to try to do multiples of those. We actually were in talks of trying to get a situation where we could rent out a bar for the draft and then be able to do a live watch draft party at a local bar in Indiana, if we can figure out a way to make that happen. So we will see just how it works.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe not this year for us, but if Derek and Cody do it next year, then maybe Loyalist and I will come in and join with them, and
we will absolutely take you guys as guests on the podcast 100%. We will definitely need you guys there. We're going to invite a bunch of Colts content creators. Mm-hmm. We'll invite any single person we get to out there. We'll try to pack the freaking bar if we can help it.
Oh, no horsing in here says, what's up, man? Dang, I got everybody. Y'all are awesome. All right. Yeah. Thanks for being in here. Says, for real, though, those stuffed crusts are the best, and they are. You just got to cook them a lot slower.
Hate stuffed crust.
They have a weird pizza where it's 2-layered. It's a double layered pizza, and they can put cheese inside the crust as well. And if you cook it slowly, it's almost like a Chicago style deep dish in the way that it's made. It's thick and one slice and you're done. It's that. Now, granted, my slices are like a quarter of a pizza, but
Hey, listen, I'm the same way, dude. I feel
because I'm cutting it myself, right? I wonder, Marquis back in here with a question. I wonder if Gus Bradley will move the secondary around to throw the
offense off. I'm guessing.
Okay. Well, I mean that's possible. We do know that Stephon Gilmore he has no problem following someone around no matter where they go on the field. And if that happens, that'll be interesting to see how he runs that, because you can run a zone defense and keep one guy on man at the same time.
I think that's what's great about Bradley's system, is that it's a little bit more complex in the sense that it's not where, for when it came to Eberflus, everyone's running zone and everyone has to follow their thing. with Gus's, it's zone sometimes, but then the next play it could be more man, and then another play, like you said, there could be zone, but one or two guys are following someone while the rest of everybody's staying in zone. So I think with Gus Bradley, you can get a little more creative with his style of defense, which I do think definitely will throw some quarterbacks off, and ultimately that just helps the defensive line.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that we keep talking about how preseason was vanilla and it was watered down. That's the type of stuff that we really haven't got to see yet. You know what I mean? And another thing is how are they going to be at disguising it? You know what I mean? How are they going to be able to sit there and keep the quarterback guessing, keep the receivers, because Eberflus, you could basically, sit there. Last year was better, but it still wasn't great. But you could see what the lineup and be like, okay, I know exactly how to expose this. I'm curious to see how much disguising that Eberflus defense pre-snap gives us.
Randy, you weren't the only one.
Yeah, okay. I know, Lawrence, you were definitely not happy with that.
I was all kinds of livid. I was like, that is textbook coverage, right? And then I had to get verified, because as soon that following Monday, one of the first things I asked Gerard Powers was like, was that textbook? And he said, yeah, that was textbook. You got to remember that these refs, this is training camp for them too.
Yeah, I was at that game, and I was sitting there. Oh, shout out to No Horsing Around. He got me some tickets for me and my son, and I was so livid during the game, but I was like, okay, I don't want to put that bad image to my son and stuff. I was just like, whoa. But as soon as we got home like at 12:30. I got home. There were some guys in Discord. First thing I did, by the way, check out our Discord, guys. A large group of guys there all the time. Good times. But yeah, I'm like, guys, that PI, and then all of a sudden it was like you could tell they'd been talking about it for a good hour or so. But whenever I asked them, it just got the conversation going again.
Okay, so one last question, then I'm going to jump out of here. Joe Roche says, think we blitz much? And no, we will not. And I'm just going to straight up tell you that right now. Don't expect the Colts to blitz very much.
It might increase by like 2 or 3%, but that's probably
that's if at all, because Gus Bradley blitzed less than Matt Eberflus did last year.
Yeah.
Right. So, speaking of the Discord, since you mentioned it there, Chuck, Loyalist, this is the link to my Discord, to the Colts Law Discord. Feel free to join in if you're not already. He says, Derek, I need you to come to the South Bend next year when OSU is there.
Hey, maybe I will. Maybe I freaking will.
Well, let me know, because I've never made a game there, and I would love to. We'll find a way.
I've been to one game, and that was the year that I think Notre Dame actually got in, and it was like the second to last game of the year, and it was packed. It's a great environment.
Absolutely. So I did say that was the last one. We are out. Appreciate all of you. Thanks again, Derek, for joining. This was a fun stream. Started off a little slow, but it picked up there in the last hour. So
yes.
Thank you, everybody who donated to the stream today to help keep the power on, help the content keep going. I appreciate that very, very much. Derek, if you ever need me or Loyalist on your show, you know how to get a hold of us, man.
I know how to get a hold of y'all. Absolutely.
All right. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That's Loyalist. And that right there is Derek. And until next time, as usual, have a good one.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.
We're not going to need to blitz much, because Nate Ollie and Gus Bradley is going to let the front four go. And you already seen what happened against Tampa Bay when those starters decide to go. They can't be stopped.